Well, hey everybody, it's HeapCVA. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to take like 5. You don't know that, but boy do I know it. I have to apologize right up front. I've got something going on where my voice gets hoarse out of the blue. And you've heard me clear my throat. I've been told it's partly my medication that I take, but I'm trying to come up with a way of clearing it in the morning, because there are times, man, it's just crazy. And so I've been doing a lot of clearing of my throat in some of the videos, and as I listen to my own videos, which I do quite often, I hear that and it bugs me. And so I'm going to try to create pauses in certain places just in case, so I can splice video together where I make that god-awful sound. So anyway, welcome to my channel. If I didn't say it before, I couldn't remember all of a sudden. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome. Welcome, because you've been here before. We are in 911 First Responders / Emergency 4, and we're doing tutorial number 8. And this is one that a lot of people are very interested in, that we are going to talk today about modifying the params folders to change how often you see given events. And that's what the game calls emergencies. They don't call them incidents. They don't call them calls. They don't call them EMS runs or whatever you hear in real life. The computer game knows them as events. So whether it's a fire or a police response, it's an event. We only talk about that in here because it's the way the program's written. So there's 2 files that you can do this action in, and we've talked about them briefly before. Is the FP /params _, endless, and the FP _params _challenge. This is the endless play that you quit when you want to quit. This one up here is the one that usually has the missions. Some mods use this one instead. If you want to play all 3 different types of services, fire, police, and EMS, or sometimes the endless is just set up for fire and police, or fire and EMS, no police. You know, just know that that exists. And if you hear a phone ringing in the background, you know, I'd have to throw that phone out in the street to get it to stop ringing. And the things that call, and I'm sure you're experiencing it too, the things that people are trying to sell you on the phone. And I thought in the last few years, we had put the hammer down on phone solicitation. And honestly, between me and you, it has tripled in the last 12 months. So anyway, let's get back into this. That's not worth talking about. So let's open the endless parameters file. And I just happen to have it open in my Notepad++. And notice I have both of them open. So if I click on the other one, you can't even see much of a difference. Although there's a time factor thing here in the challenge one that not really sure what that means. I've never fooled with that. So I will play with that, and if something pops up that's really interesting, I'll hit you guys up in another video. So anyway, here we are in the endless file, and we've already talked about these guys right here. Now, before we go any further, let me clarify something. I couldn't remember if I did it wrong or not, but if I did it wrong, I'm going to correct it, and if it wasn't wrong, and I just think it was, then I'm just underscoring what you should know already, is that the last 2 lines, one is initial event wait duration, and the next one is start time value. This one here is how many ticks. It's not seconds, it's not minutes, it's not hours. It's how many ticks, and ticks is a computer thing, and it's very difficult to describe, but it's how many times your CPU processes the ones and the zeros, you know. So wait time duration of 5.0 means that pretty much when the game starts, boom, you're getting a call. Or in this case, an incident. Or it's not an incident, oh my God. It's an event. Doo-doo-doo. I'm going to have to hit myself in the head. So that's a pretty short period of time. This is the one that you would want to fool around with in a mod where the vehicles aren't in the fire stations, there's no ambulances on the map, there's no police on the map, and you got to call everything to the map. You want that value to be longer. You don't have to, but you know, that's what you're hoping for. This one here, and this is the one I think I messed up on, is start time value. I don't know what I was thinking, but this is a time value. That's 7:30 in the morning. Now, this is in 24-hour time, not 12-hour time. So once you go past 12 o'clock noon, 1 o'clock is actually 1300, 1400, 1500, all the way up to 2359, and then midnight is 00, if you didn't know that. So what this means is you can start in the morning at 7:30, or you can start at 1900, which is 7 p.m. Remember, just add 12 hours to the regular time. Or you can have it start at midnight. It's up to you. But that's where you would set that. And I couldn't remember if I got it right or wrong, but I just wanted to clarify it. So let's go down. We're not fooling around with ratings. There probably is a reason to do it somewhere. Right now, I can't necessarily think of it. I don't have any proof that I've ever changed any of these. So let's scroll down. We're looking for events, but I want to catch one thing before we talk about events, because it's a very small thing and it doesn't deserve its own video because it's only one line, and that is train cycle. Right now, that's the base value, and these are in seconds. So every 240 seconds or 4 minutes, you're going to get a train through your map if you have train tracks. The bigger this number is, the least or the longer it takes to get another train, just so you know. So if you think the train comes through a little too often, and there's a couple of maps I can think of where I've got to change that, make it 999, and it's going to take quite a while in between trains. Just take your pick. This other one up here, I don't fool with. As far as I know, in the editor, when you decide what a contamination range is as a result of an accident or a hazmat incident or a fire with a hazmat, when you modify the map and you create this box, and there's a specific box you can surround a building or an area with that tells you where, and they're green, just like the vapors are in the hazmat incident when you play the game. I've never seen a measurement. Well, there's actually a meter measurement in here, and I've never fooled with it, and I've never seen it have a difference in the way I play on the regular game, both the base game or in a mod. So I just don't fool with it. But the train cycle, definitely. So that's that, and we don't have to have a video for it. No tutorial for that. But here we are in events. This is one of the big ones everybody asks about. Every time I go on Steam, I do even check the forums for this game still. There's still people downloading this game, and they're brand new to the game, have no idea what to do. Excuse me. See, I cleared my throat, and I meant to do that off camera, if you will. So I'll try not to do it again. This easy thing to know about events, and the thing that's most asked, is I want to do the police calls only. And so how do I turn off the fires? All right, well, I can answer that for you real easy. These are events, and each one has its own container of values in it. And the first one here, and we'll talk about what we can see, is a fall event. So that's EMS. Whether you want that or not is very simple to do. The very first line underneath the name is the enabled value. And there's only two numbers you have to remember. The number 0 and the number 1. 0 means off. 1 means on. It's as simple as that. Double click the number, push a 0, boom. All of a sudden, there are no more falls going to show up in your game for that particular point in time. If all of a sudden you're bored and you want to go on EMS calls again, turn it back to 1, you're good to go. So that's as easy as that is. And that goes for any event. As I scroll down, there's quite a few of them in here. Some you've seen, some you haven't. All the way down, the very last one usually that's listed, and I'll speed up here a little bit, is, see, we're still going here, is the earthquake. So that's how many there are. And as far as I know, for 99% of the mods, they keep this list. I've seen a few extras added, and I've seen a few extras that are zeroed out immediately because they just don't want to see them. So as we scroll down, these are all EMS calls here. If you don't want to have the ambulance go on a call, you're still going to get it, even if you play just the police side. If you have to shoot one of the characters in the game, you're going to need an ambulance to deal with them. You can't just throw them in your police car and dump them off on the street somewhere. So you're still going to need an ambulance. If you blow up a car by shooting it, which I've done a few times just to get it out of the way, not on camera, but I've done it, you need the fire department to put the fire out so you can haul it away. The tow truck will not pick up a burning vehicle, obviously for good reason. So just know those things in advance. Even though you only want to play the police side or just the fire side, you're still going to need the other groups on various incidents because of what happens, whether it's traffic control, or if you're just doing fire and there's an explosion like I had in the last video, if you guys saw that, where I blew up a fire engine and a ladder truck, and all those injured firefighters require ambulances. And so, you get all three of the groups, whether you really want them or not, depending on the event. So these are all fire event or EMS events. They pretty much all the same. There's no extra values in there that you should look at. If you're wondering what the ID _ super V _ event number, which like event 21 here, I'll highlight it. That is a command line for the game to go look in a certain file, and there's a file in your game that has all of these events in them, and it's the phrases that the dispatcher says if you use the guy with the baseball hat on. I forget what he's called, but when he comes on, and he's from Australia, it seems like, he's looking for whatever line that is, and that's the way he says, there's a heart attack, there's a stroke, there's a lightning strike, whatever it is, comes out of that event line. And that's for another day, but just know that's how the dispatcher knows what's up there must be several timers running in the background in this game, but this is the one that once the timer hits an event, and it sends that to another part of the program that says, all right, where is event 21? Finds event 21 and sends that data to the guy that pops up on your screen and says, we have a heart attack, the person down on the ground, or however. There's a couple of different ways, and it can choose between them, but it's telling you for a specific event. Now, you don't see that in the game, but just know that it's there. So let's scroll down a little bit. Now we're into fire events. Remember, anything that's green on my screen is a comment. They're not things that the computer looks at and makes any action on. As long as it has exclamation point and the 2 dashes with the brackets, it's a comment. And I used to do that a lot. If you've ever built a website, I used comments to tell me about different parts of the website when I used to do website design, so I'd know where things, if they change regularly or there's going to be some kind of a program running in the background, or you're going to do like a slideshow for different photos and stuff. Boy, does that get off track. So here's the first fire event, which is flash strike, which to me is a lightning strike. And you notice that it's pretty much the same. It's got a pretty high number for the average frequency value. And it tells you what that frequency value, how that's calculated. That's average number of events per 10 minutes. The damage radius, not dam radius, oh my God. The damage radius is probably when the lightning strikes, what is the diameter of what could catch fire? Or, you know, if it gets a car, is it going to blow up? That's something you could change if you wanted to make it bigger or smaller. That's up to you. Worth, I don't even fool with those. Most of the time when we're in mods, you're not worried about money. If you're playing the base game, you worry about money, because in order to buy additional vehicles as an incident gets bigger, you need the cash up front. So you have to look at that one a little more. There's a search damage rounds. Not sure what that means. I've never changed it. It hasn't made any difference in my gameplay. And it's event 36. The last one here is supervisor finish value. I've never seen a number in there. I have no idea why it was in there. I'm sure there's a reason, probably in the missions. So you notice that some of the fire incidents have a few more things in it, some have less. This one is kind of funny because this is how, you know, somebody drops a cigarette, it catches a bush on fire, and you do get those every once in a while where you can put them out with a fire extinguisher. It talks about how far away from the individual, and I am going to start looking when I play this game in the mods to see if I can see the little character walking down the sidewalk throwing the cigarette. I want to see that because it's in here, if you knew it or not, and how far away he can throw that cigarette to start a fire, and what chance he has to actually start one. Then we get into the police responses, which are events. And here's shoplifting, very common. The average frequency is 1.5. Now you're thinking, well, what does that mean in the term of things? Actually, the smaller the number, the least times you'll see it. The bigger the number left of the period is, the more often you're going to see that call, that incident, that event. I gotta remember the word event. This is the only time I ever think about it in that term. So a 1.5 to me is relatively low. I would have thought it would be much higher. There is a thing in here about how often in each incident of shoplifting is the person armed. And there's this whole wait time about victims that I've never seen a victim. I guess I've never paid attention. I don't play the police side very often, but there's a whole thing about the victim waving for help and all kinds of stuff that I never looked at before. I'm watching the guy on the little map, the little yellow guy running away and going and catching him. I never thought about going and seeing the victim. Shows you what I know, right? So anyway, there's several of these. Here's car accident, where you talk about one that's very critical, and that's life drain in energy per tick. And here's one of those timers that isn't based on something that we recognize. It's not a second, it's not a minute like your watch or your phone. It's a tick in the computer. And that could be split seconds, double, triple, quintuple split seconds. And so in a car accident, or like if you saw my video yesterday, if a car goes off the bridge and into the water, if you don't get them out of the vehicle within a certain period of time, by the time you go get them, you'll be hauling them off to the corner. So that's one that's special to this particular event. There's Rapid Dog. And remember, if we just want to turn them on or off, 0 or 1, man. 0 turns them off, 1 turns them back on. So there's a lot in here, depending on whether you want to play all 3, EMS, police, and fire, or you just want to play 1. I've never played just EMS. I guess it's possible. I would have to fool with how often you get EMS calls, because they're not the most or the busiest calls when you're playing fire and EMS. So there's Rowdy. That's usually a single actor doing that. Here's Bomber. You know, you can play with how far away the bomber gets before the bomb explodes, the timer, the minimum and maximum, things like that, whether they're armed or not. Hostage taking, same thing. So there's other things you can do in addition to just turning them on and turning them off. Especially if you're just playing one, like you're playing police only, you may want to bump up certain calls because you enjoy going on those calls. That you have fun with that. Or if you're in a good mod that has a lot of extra vehicles, even the base game actually has quite a few extra vehicles. You actually want to use them. So if you want to do one where a bomber comes and sets a device, you actually want to see it so you can call those vehicles out. You don't want to wait, and in a given 30-minute time frame, you never see that call. So I want to talk about demonstration event real quick. It's something I just found out, and I actually had never paid attention to this much before because, like I said, I don't play the police side much. There's a Molotov cocktail value in here. Now, it's max mol cock time, which, wow, never mind. But anyway, what this is talking about is that some of the demonstrators, you know, they got their little signs and they're protesting, actually have something to attack law enforcement with. And it'll take your police officer out. And I just played Adelaide, and I was going to make a video of it and play the police side. And obviously I need to go into this file in Adelaide, the mod, and adjust some things, because I had like 10 demonstrators. So I had 4 police cars there, all have 2-person staffing. So I was going to start picking off the edge demonstrators one at a time and take them to the car, you know. It was like they had a bazooka. They took out my entire police force in less than 4 minutes. And in that particular mod, you're limited to how many police cars are available. Now, you can buy some more, but I could never get enough on scene. Didn't matter. And the only option I had at the end of the day when they started throwing the Molotov cocktail was to shoot them. And I hate doing that when it's not a robber, it's not somebody that's got a weapon and is shooting at you first. It kind of bums me about this. You should be able, with 2 police officers, to take down a given suspect and move them down the road. And that isn't necessarily the case here. And they definitely lowered that time value down so that the whole group just like I said, it wiped out the police force. And I got so frustrated over that, I got rid of that video. So you're not seeing that right now until I make some changes. It would have been, I think I was only like 4 minutes into the video and I'd killed the entire police force. Or actually, they weren't dead. I would have needed 10 ambulances. And they were attacking the ambulances too. It was a mess. So, lesson learned. Bank robbery, pickpocketing, you know, again, all these things are things you can change. The suicide ones are very simple. It's just whether or not, how often they are, where they're at, whether they're on or off. A civil car defect is a car fire. One that you need to know is average time till explode. If you let a car fire keep burning and don't do anything with it, you have so many seconds minus 50% spreading. Yeah. I'd like to try to explain that, but I've never explained it correctly yet. But if you don't want the car to explode so soon, raise that number. Gas explosion's pretty easy. The short circuit is the only one that talks about an injured person in a house. Why don't the rest of the fires have the same issue? I don't know. That's just thinking out loud. Running amok, that one's pretty average. This one, become murderer. For me personally, if I'm going to play the police side, I turn this event off. And you're like, why would you do that? Well, for me, because of my career and what I did for a living, I had to deal with this from the EMS side too often in some of the jurisdictions I worked in. And so I just don't need to remind myself of that stuff, so I just don't deal with it. And I just turn it off. There's plenty of other things to keep the police busy. You don't need to do this one. Now, you could have it and lower it down to 0.00. I don't know how many zeros you could go out, but I could make this where it would only come up once in a blue moon. But I just turn it off. It just makes it easier for me. And then this very last one is earthquake. Now, I always turn it off, regardless of what branch I'm playing, because if an earthquake occurs in your free play game, pretty much that's all you're going to be doing for the next 30 minutes. Now, could that make a good video? Yeah. But it will suck up all of your resources, and you better hope no other event happens, because it's just a sit back and watch things fall down and burn down. And there'll be too many casualties. It's made more for a mission, not for free play. But I've been thinking about it. I think I'm going to ramp up the average frequency and see if I can play a mod and let an earthquake occur, and we'll see what happens with it. Because there are things in here where you could create entire videos based off of one particular event, or types of events that occur rapidly. Another one that I don't usually have on, which would make a video all by itself if I can find it, is the arsonist right here. I usually turn that off. I could leave it on, but it changes my gameplay from being just fire and EMS to all three, because you need the police officer to catch the arsonist. The firefighters don't catch the arsonist. The police have to do that. So it's a police event. And so if they really get active, they can burn your entire town down before they're caught. Because the time to the next arson is not in seconds. It's in something they don't list, but I'm guessing that's ticks. And what the distance is between the arsonist and the victim, which I would assume is either a person or a building. So there's those things there. But pretty much that's this in a nutshell. And I'm sorry for scrolling up so fast, but I want to stop right here. So here we talked about events. We know how to turn them on and off. We know that there's some other things that we can fool with if we want to see them more or see them less. We can turn trains to be more often or at least less often. And there's some extra events based on whether you want to be fire or police. They are kind of grouped, so you can just kind of scroll down and hit all the zeros if you don't want to have EMS, or you don't want to have the police calls or events, or you don't want to be the firefighter today. And so it's actually the enabled value thing is very easy. And once you get it done, just remember the same change is made in this one too. It's the same basic file. And you change them in both, then it doesn't matter which tab you click on, you're going to get the same gameplay. Unless you're doing missions, you're going to get the same gameplay. So, like I said, the one place where this is really important to do both sides for me is going to be, I have Boston, I have Mulberry, and I think those are the two that really pop out at me. If you just play in the free play, and let's say you only want to be the fire, so you turn off all the law enforcement incidents, or events. Gosh, I'll never remember that. You get a brush fire on the edge of the map, and it gets burning more than 3 or 4 trees, and you can't quite get to it, and you're waiting for it to get to an area where you can get to it because there's no aircraft in the Boston mod. The game will stop, and a little pop-up will come up saying you've lost control of the incident, and you have to start over. Well, I figured out a way to get around that is you change the parameters challenge one to match and play off of that side. Turn on or off the ones you don't want to see, and then you don't get that you've lost control box come up. And it's only in those 2 mods, as far as I know. And so there's no other way to turn it off. And these guys that made these mods weren't going to tell you where that is. I never looked. I didn't really worry about it. Once I knew I could do it through there, I just did that. Do I always change the challenge one when I change the endless? No. Usually I play a mod through once just to see what it looks like, and then I start looking for the things that are particular to each mod. So that's events in a nutshell. Turning them on and off is probably the biggest thing you're going to do. Frequencies, you may fool with that a little bit. The rest of it's pretty much is what it is. I mean, there are other things to change. If you really want to be a busy police officer, a busy firefighter, obviously you'll want to change those numbers a little bit. So leave me comments if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for other tutorials you may want to see. Hopefully this made sense to you. If it did, give me a thumbs up because it tells me I'm on the right track. If I completely missed the mark and I didn't make any sense at all, give me a thumbs down because that tells me I'm off track and I need to go back and figure out what I did wrong. If none of that stuff is something you were thinking about and you're not a subscriber, the way you'll find out that these are up and that new stuff is coming out is if you subscribe, you get notified ahead of anybody else. And instead of having to look through 7 pages of searches, I'm already up there exactly where you need to see, so you know that I posted. I try to post one every day. I don't always make it, but I try to post at least every other day. So especially like with some of the games that people are really focused on, you want to know when there isn't as many of us as I thought posting gameplay and info on certain games. So, knowing ahead of the group is probably a good thing. All right, that's all said and done. I hope you're having a great day or great evening, depending on where you're on the planet, whether the sun's up or the moon's coming out or the stars. Sometimes you don't get a moon. And you've heard me say it already about the Earth spinning. That creates gravity. That means we don't fly off. Last time I checked, they're still rotating. So I haven't flown out of my house yet, and I'm floating away into the clouds. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe I'll drop that. Anyway, I'll get to work on doing a couple more tutorials because I'd like to have at least 3 ready to go. I won't do them all in one day, but I want to get back on this while I'm waiting for the updates from the other games, which have actually posted that there will be no updates for at least the next week. So I'm going to fill in those gaps with this and some other things I got going on. Come back to my channel and check it out, see if it's anything you're interested in. And that being said, as I've said a million times, or at least 120, I think that's how many videos are uploaded, is and I know we'll see each other in the next video, and you guys have a great day.